Okay, planning board, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines will remain off. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the planning board of the town of East Hampton meeting of June 26th, 2024. We had to adjourn at least one matter that was scheduled for tonight, so we're only going to have two matters on. One is a subdivision review, and the other is, it's listed here as a site plan review, but it's more in the nature of a subdivision review, but it's more than that, and I'll get into it when we get into it. A couple of boards of review, so we'll take care of the Ranger Estates final subdivision. Jen, that's yours, and Mr. Whalen, that's yours, and who among you, between you? Will, all right. Very good. Go right ahead.
Good evening, planning board. So this is good evening, planning board. So this is a project located at 23 Peach Farm Lane in East Hampton, and they propose to modify the building envelope on the subject property. The property is zoned A3 residence and was created as part of the Ranger Estates subdivision, which was approved on March 29, 2000. At the first submission of this application, the applicant explained that the garage had been partially constructed outside of the approved building envelope. This little triangle, yellow triangle, is the section that was constructed outside. The extension of the garage beyond the limit of the building envelope violates one of the subdivision covenants, and this application seeks to fix this issue. The applicant proposes to make the building envelope 587 square feet smaller and reshape it to include the section of garage built outside of it. So that's in red, is the reshaped building envelope. By extending the building envelope to include the small area of garage outside of it and shrinking the envelope in another area with steep slopes, the applicant has offered a reduction in size of the envelope. So this little area here is where it's shrinking. The proposed expansion to include the garage is 124 square feet, and the proposed reduction is 711 square feet for a total decrease in the building envelope area by 587 square feet. At the previous meeting on March 20th, 2024, the board agreed this situation did not constitute a change in circumstances. And as a result, the proposed resolution would include the following language, which the board should discuss to determine if this is acceptable. Quote, reasons supporting the modification. Notwithstanding the absence of a change in circumstances, the planning board has agreed to a modification of the subdivision approval in this unique and likely not precedent setting, circumstance in view of A, the small size of the encroachment outside of the originally approved building envelope, and B, the applicant's agreement to decrease the square footage of the building envelope by an amount considerably larger than the encroachment. End quote. In conclusion, the planning department recommends that the proposed reduction of the building envelope is appropriate, and if the planning board agrees, the application is complete and ready for a public hearing.
Very good.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Chairman. Richard Whalen, let me get this thing fixed here. I guess I have to hold it.
Working yesterday.
Richard Whalen from Whalen Fowler PLLC and Amagansett, representing the applicant, Darren Ocasio. Nothing much more to add to what was just said, but I do have two things. First of all, the Declaration of Covenants restrictions provide that all clearings shall be limited to the building envelopes. So this actually reduces the portion of the property that could be cleared. Side benefit. I'm not sure if you were aware of that. And the only other comment is, just so you know, you're not required to hold a public hearing. You choose to, that's your choice, but there's no requirement for a public hearing. Okay, thank you.
Jen?
Thanks, everybody. I think that we discussed this the last time, and I think the language that says, notwithstanding the absence of a change in circumstances, we agree to it. I think there's really not much left to discuss.
Yeah, we had a pretty thorough going
Yeah.
discussion last time, and I think it was a unique set of circumstances here. And I think the thing we should focus on particularly is the words of the covenant, which is where it says specifically, the applicant's agreement to decrease the square footage of the building envelope by an amount considerably larger than the encroachment. So what this means, I think, is that if indeed these circumstances or very similar circumstances repeat themselves, then in order to get the benefit of being able to say that we did this before, the applicant is going to have to provide a building envelope that is considerably larger than the encroachment. And so that's where we're at. I don't know how we all feel about the public hearing aspect of things, but I generally favor public hearings if given a choice. And I think in particular this one, just because it is not, it's kind of off the beaten path, this one. I would be in favor of the public hearing. So,
I agree. I disagree.
I
don't think we need a public hearing.
Yeah, I feel like
I don't
it's
think we need a
just
public
small.
hearing.
Yeah.
Well, I think we need it, like Sam said, we're doing something here that sets a new precedent.
Yeah.
It's not ordinary course of business. This is brand new. We've never done anything like this before. And I think we should let the public voice their opinion about it. If there, I'd like to hear if there's something that someone feels that is drastically wrong with what we're doing. I'd like to hear that.
I agree with Lou. I think these are unusual circumstances. I think we need to give the public an opportunity to weigh in on it. I like the language in here. This is likely not precedent setting, but it could be, right? And I think it's tricky enough. I think we want the public to know about what we're doing.
your no and your no, your,
I just think that we've made the discussion here and it's, out what we're doing and that
that makes it, I'm sorry.
but that makes it what, 4-3? It's
No,
gonna-
Right.
3 to 3.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, I'm with these guys.
I heard-
I'm sorry, I missed that. I
I
apologize.
think we're having a
Why don't you
public
go
hearing.
sit-
but I saw
Having a
Bristol
public
like
hearing.
this.
I didn't see, I'm sorry for saying that. Okay, all right, well, there you are.
Yeah.
So, all right, so does the planning board agree that the proposed reduction of the building envelope? Is there something you wanted to add?
No, it's not regarding the public hearing. I'll just add when you're done. I'm going to jump ahead.
I'm gonna do the questions.
Yes, right.
We don't have a resolution tonight.
No, okay.
We'll have one at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Does the planning board, assuming that we get the answers I expect to get here, does the planning board agree that the proposed reduction of the building envelope is appropriate in this circumstance?
Yes.
Yes.
And is this application complete and ready for a public hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Please.
This has to do with the assuming that after the public hearing that you approve it. I just want to point out the way you should do this, because this isn't something you've been doing very often. You should require that the applicant file a certificate of map amendment or map correction. Because otherwise, the map on file with the county clerk is not, that map out won't actually change. But you'd file a document that supplements the map. If somebody pulls up the map, they should come up with the map amendment, and that would show the change in the building envelope on this lot. So you and your council should bear that in mind.
Well, we will take that under advisement, and we will, Nancy, you can look into that. If that's the case, then we'll
Right. Right.
instruct the planning department appropriately. Thank you very much. Okay, so, like I said, the Bayberry Estates matter was adjourned, as was the 54 Industrial Road matter. That brings us to the only other, we have two boards of review. The only other matter on. You recall that 350 Panago Road is a parcel, I think it used to be was it Stern's department store? It was the Stern's department.
Gertz before then, yeah.
Thank you. All department stores that are long gone, and if they were still around would be in bankruptcy today.
Or Macy's.
Well, there you are.
Yeah.
Speaking of, there was a subdivision application that was brought by the prior owner of 350 Pantago. And that property, 350 Pantago, was sold since our last meeting, which was December 6th, 2023? It was sold to its new owner. And you guys might not recall, but everybody else will recall that there was unanimity on the board that parcel was ideal for affordable housing. It's on 27. It's directly across pretty much from Cantwell Court, which is going to be affordable housing. And I think we write a letter to the town board saying, endorsing the idea that it will be affordable housing. So what has happened, as I say, the property was sold, and the subdivision application was subsequently assigned by the prior owner to the new owner of the property. And so that subdivision application is still a live pending application. There were some issues with the subdivision application that were outstanding, and I asked the planning department on very short notice to prepare this little memo. I can read it. I'll read it, and you don't have to bother unless you want to read it. I'll do it. These were this will be easy. These were the things that we instructed the applicant needed to be done to complete the existing subdivision application. The applicant stated that a scenic easement will be dedicated to the town or will revise the map accordingly. The revegetation plan will be required for the scenic easement to ensure its effectiveness as a vegetative buffer per code requirements. The board will require that all excavation be completed by an excavation contractor and that the debris will be carted to an appropriate recycling facility as a condition of approval. The applicant should make a submission to New York State Department of Environmental Conservation regarding, somebody help me, NLEB.
Northern long-eared bat.
I'm sorry?
Northern
Oh,
long-eared bat.
thank you. Northern long-eared bat presence, and ensure that the Department of Environmental Conservation requirements are met, including but potentially not limited to maintaining tree clearing in the specified time frame, and this will be made a condition of approval. Applicant should contact New York Department of Transportation to confirm whether the eastern curb cut is the preferred location, and the town attorney will research to determine if the curb cut is viable due to non-use. So those were the outstanding issues. And as I say, the application is now being put forward by the new owner of the property. And that's what's on for tonight, is subdivision application. The applicant also had wanted to do a preliminary site plan review, but there wasn't sufficient information in the planning department's opinion to support a site plan review, even a preliminary site plan review. But underlying all of this is the applicant's interest and desire to move forward with the project as an affordable housing parcel, which is exactly in line with our stated interest. The applicant, though, has a proposal that I guess is going to be at some point in the future before the town board, but at this point is being taken to us to see how we react to it as a workforce housing proposal. And this is my copy, which is,
Got a fancy copy.
I got a very fancy one. Yeah. It's a privileges of rank or something. Anyway, the point is that we all have it. We all should have read it. And what I'd like to do is give the applicant's counsel, Mr. Kelly, the opportunity to talk to us about the workforce housing proposal, and then we can discuss it ourselves, bearing in mind that what we have is something that is related to, at this point, a subdivision application. Did I explain that more or less accurately? Very well. Okay. So the floor is yours.
For those of you that may not have had it or looked at it recently, this is the narrative that was attached to that preliminary site plan application. So if you've already looked at it, this is just plain copy of it.
Yeah, it's in it.
We circulated
it's-
this on
we have-
Friday.
yeah.
I think it was Friday.
But I'll take the.
I'll take, yeah. Is that the,
Oh, this is the same.
yeah.
Look what we were emailed, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Christopher Kelly, Toomey Latham, Shea, Kelly, Dugan, and Corderaro, for the applicant, and that's the new applicant, 350 Panago Road LLC, and Kirby Mark Antonio, who's here tonight and would also like to address you. So in the context of the subdivision waiver application, which is for 3 lots of the property, as the chair described, we're here to talk about an alternative to that. The alternative is something called workforce housing that we're calling workforce housing. Kirby came to me in November of 2022 with this idea that he had come up with, which is that maybe we could put together something to expedite the provision of affordable housing that would be out of what the box currently is in the town code for providing that. And had started meeting with town officials to see if they could give him guidance and some direction about what properties around town might be suitable for such a development, and also if they were interested in this concept that was in formation. He looked at several sites around town and was given some input from town officials, but generally vague input. But the concept is this, that there would be privately developed housing, which would be developed in the form of condo or cooperative units. That form can be, has not been determined and may be determined on a case-by-case basis. And the units would be for sale, but not to qualifying homeowners based on income, but to employers within the town based on the number of employees they have in the town. So for instance, a threshold might be 4 employees or 6 employees in the town. The employers would then use this housing to provide to their employees as part of their compensation package. And we can all, I think we all know that there's a shortage of staffing of many local businesses and many local services. And it's a housing issue as well as a transportation issue. Because as we know, to the extent that we can't provide housing for our teachers, our police, our tradesmen, our people working in the hospitality industry, to the extent we don't have that housing here, they have to come from somewhere. And where are they coming from? Well, we call it Up Island around here, but they're coming from much farther west, and they're in something called the Trade Parade that we've all had the pleasure of experiencing. So we all know anecdotally that the need exists, but Kirby actually went the extra mile and canvassed his clients who are advertisers in the publications he produces, and got not only their sense of whether this idea interested them, but whether they would be interested in purchasing units for their employees. And he'll describe this at length, but he got an overwhelming and resounding yes, and people wanting to find out where they can sign up to buy the units. So just by way of background, I had been working, I was previously the attorney for the Housing Authority back in the earliest days of the Housing Authority. But since then, as a private attorney, I represented several local businesses that have had to go into the market. And every so often I get a call and they'll say, oh, you're getting a memo of sale on a purchase for a house that's $950,000, or it's 1.1 million. Everything in that range, which is basically the bottom feeding in the town right now at that price point. We're buying it because we're going to put employees in it, and this is the deal. And can you get us, get the contract signed so that we can get this usually before the season starts. So some businesses have been able to, on a proactive basis, go out and buy million-dollar homes for their employees. I just share that with you because it demonstrates how far or how willing local employers are to get into the business of providing housing for their employees, because it's a necessity for many of them. So going back to the November of 2022, when Kirby asked me to come to a meeting with him with some town board members, when he was looking around for sites, and we started kicking around the idea, and he asked me, what is the current regime for providing affordable housing in the town? And I did some research, and I was familiar with it to some extent, but essentially what exists is the Affordable Housing Overlay District. And the Affordable Housing Overlay District provides for entities to furnish rental housing to people who are income qualified. So the system is tenant-based. The tenant qualifies for a particular unit. Now, I was around when the 1984 code was amended, zoning code was amended, and it was a massive amendment. And that's when the Affordable Housing Overlay District was created. My experience as a resident in this town and as part of the legal community is that I don't believe a single unit of affordable housing has been provided since the creation of this district that has been privately constructed. I believe every housing unit that we've produced, and the town has a very good record on that, has been through the auspices of the town board or through the housing authority. And that's how our affordable housing units have come here. Now, clearly, and I compliment the town on all that they've done, but clearly the needs far outstrips what has been done so far publicly. So the idea was, can we somehow incentivize the private sector to provide affordable housing, since this whole concept is to aid the private sector while at the same time aiding people who need housing here and need to work here. We agreed that in our discussions that there were two things that needed to be done to incentivize the private sector. And that was, one, increase the densities so that the current density is 6 units per acre, or 8 units per acre, increase that to 12, and also to tweak the code. So rather than an entity, usually a public entity, owning the infrastructure and renting it out, becoming in essence a landlord, that these would be sold as sale units to businesses. So we started speaking to town officials about that concept and whether this was something that they would be interested in. We had a lot of discussions, and it appeared that there was some interest. The town wanted to refine the concept and the language to see how this could be done. And they are hopefully, and we believe, about to give some formal consideration to amendments to the Affordable Housing Overlay District. But essentially, this is what I believe that they're talking about. And it would be a special permit and site plan that a private developer could apply for to build units to be sold to employers with at least 4 employees. That the density could go up to as many as 12 units per acre, provided that there was a sewage treatment plant for the project. That the rentals and the sales of units would be overseen by the housing office, such that the units it's a way for the town to make sure that the intention of the legislation is being met, that only people that are supposed to be in these units will be in these units. These aren't to be rented out for summer beach going of the employer's niece and nephew. That the tenants will be primarily moderate income employees of the employer, with the exception available for doctors and other medical personnel, for municipal employees, police, teachers, essential workers, essentially. So that if those people had income which exceeded the moderate income levels as defined in the code, they could get a waiver, if you will, so that they could be an appropriate employee for some of these developments. And lastly, there would be a restriction on resale such that these units would remain affordable in perpetuity. There'd be a very limited amount of profit that could be tacked on a resale so that these things would not end up being sucked into the market of very expensive housing. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the way Peconic Landing works. My mom is up there, but my mom and stepfather went through the process where they purchased a house, and when they got to the point where they had to move into an apartment, the house was sold back to Peconic Landing. Peconic Landing could sell it to somebody else, but the price was limited. It wasn't open-ended. You couldn't just get whatever the market bore. There was a schedule of prices based on the square footage and the number of bedrooms. Similar type of thing would happen here. There would be a limit on how these units could be resold, what additional monies could be obtained for them. So how do we get to this place where we're here tonight and we're talking about 350? Well, it just so happens that Kirby was watching one of these meetings on TV and saw the interest of this board in the fact that affordable housing might be an option for this site. He went and researched the file, and he'll talk a little bit more about that, but contacted the owner, and the owner was willing to sell, and he rounded up some investors who were willing to take the chance that this project, if you will, this amendment to the code, this idea of workforce housing might come to fruition, knowing worst case is that they would have a subdivision that's 95% done here, that they could cash out if they needed to, if the required amendments never came to fruition. So that's where we're here tonight to introduce to you. And also, one of the things that makes this particular site good for maybe the first project in this concept is that the Southampton Hospital has the emergency room opening I guess next year, 2025, just 2 properties over, and needs, from what they've told us, at least 30 of our units if we were able to construct them, because they need doctors, medical personnel, staff for that emergency room. And they would be essentially in walking distance to this site if it was a workforce housing site. So there's a bunch of public benefits that we believe converge with this concept and with this particular property. So with that, my ask tonight to you all is that if you could let us know if this idea interests you for the site, and if so, whether you would be willing to write a letter or resolution or a memo to the town board supporting that, because I hope that they will soon be bringing this up for discussion, and hopefully we'll get to a public hearing someday in the near future on these types of amendments. But we would love to have your advance support to help get the ball rolling. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Kirby Marcantonio, the brainchild, whose brainchild this is. Go ahead.
2 questions, Chris. Do you think this would be year-round housing or seasonal?
It would be both. A facility like the hospital needs year-round, right? But a local restaurant might only need it for the summertime. The Maidstone Club, if it was not only needed for the summertime. There are seasonal businesses, as we know here. So it would be both.
And then, you mentioned police and teachers, but who buys those?
So the municipality has to buy them. So we've actually talked to, without going into a lot of specifics, one was a public meeting, so it was in the papers about over a year ago, to school districts. And we've been discussed with a different school district who are very interested in getting housing units near their campus or on their campus where they can put up administrators, staff, teachers, which they can't get. And they're taking that train from West Hampton, or they're getting in the trade parade.
I have some
Any other questions?
more questions.
Okay, well,
Let's hear from the applicant himself. Good evening.
Some of the things I'll be talking about are put into more explanation in these little packages for you. I hope they're informative.
Thank you.
I thank you, by the way, for the time, for seeing us. It's been a very long time since we've actually been able to say the word workforce housing in public. And it's a delight to be able to do that. My name is Kirby Mark Antonio, and I'm the managing partner of 350 Panago. And I want to thank you for giving me the time to add to Chris's presentation on the legal and zoning issues affecting 350 Panago as a workforce housing project. And now that you know what needs to be done, I just want to give you a brief review of how we got there. As a lifelong resident of East Hampton, I've seen how climbing real estate costs have impacted other local residents. But as a publisher of Montauk and Hampton Life, I've also seen how this affects local businesses, large and small. Housing has always been a problem for employers, but with the least expensive rentals currently at $6,000 a month and up, and house prices starting at $1.2 million, it has become literally impossible. The result is a shortage of workers on every level, making it nearly impossible to operate this community without importing workers of all levels from affordable communities further west. Over the past 3 years, I've tried to craft a solution to this problem. I started with Kate Rogers in January 2022. I suggested we use the dormant charter school on Stephen Hand's Path as a sort of dorm for workers. For a variety of reasons, that was not available. Kate, though, sent me to John Jelnicki, who proposed I look into some of the vacant town-owned land around the airport. Again, that was a non-starter. Over the course of that year, I met with every town board member, consulted with Jeremy and the planning department numerous times to explain the idea and look for a possible site. Jeremy did recommend a 7-acre parcel on Wainscott on Daniels Hold Road that might fit, but much more work needed to be done. So at that time, we were asked to do two things: survey the town's businesses to see if they actually wanted a project of this kind, and work with Eric Shantz on amendments to the code that would make any project possible while still continuing to look for suitable sites. That spring, I met with a small fractions of folks I thought would be interested. To a person, they agreed this has to be done, and they had to have a part. Collectively, their ask for units is far beyond our 48-unit potential at 350 Panago. You'll see the results in the presentation folder in your hands. Perhaps the best and most critical example is Southampton Hospital. As many of you may know, they have a hard time keeping their existing meeting house medical facilities open and fully staffed. Next year, they intend to open their new $24 million ER just a few steps from here. But I can tell you from speaking with their top level staff, they are extremely concerned that a lack of affordable housing may restrict their ability to run that facility. That's why they have asked me for as many as 30 units to house those workers. Last June, Chris and I began meeting with Eric to discuss privately funded workforce housing project legislation. I have to say Eric was extremely helpful in this, producing what we believe to be a viable working framework for this new kind of project. Still, we have no actual site. And as Chris said, if I hadn't been watching LTV last December, we might not have one today. That evening, you were putting the final touches on the then current 350 Panago application. I believe the issue was whether to take out the existing parking lot before final approval or after. While I watched a number of then board members raise the question, why is the only privately owned piece of land in the town of East Hampton actually zoned for affordable housing being subdivided for 3 estate lots? Why isn't it being used for affordable housing? I, for one, could not agree more. The next day I read the file and I found the owner. I explained that we were trying to do, and after some consideration, he agreed to sell the piece under the following conditions: pay the full price, ask for no conditions of any kind, and close in 30 days. I convinced my group to do exactly that. I believed at that time we had laid enough groundwork to make workforce housing a reality, and this was one of the only parcels that would fit the criteria without rezoning. I also stressed that if for any reason we were denied the opportunity, we did have a 3-lot subdivision, 95% done, and could always sell or develop the 3 lots more quickly and with less challenges. Working with a team of engineers, septic experts, and construction consultants, we have developed a plan that you will see. We hope to build 48 1, 2, and 3-bedroom townhouse units. The project will be serviced by a state-of-the-art package septic system, the same one you use at the Housing Authority's 3 Mile Harbor project. These units will be priced at far less than any comparable housing and sold to local employees solely for their employers, solely for their employees. A cap on resale prices will ensure their affordability in perpetuity. We all know the need is here. We all know the availability of land has dwindled to the point of non-existence. We all know we cannot put this off much longer. We need to move forward in a carefully calculated but expedited way to begin building workforce housing. And I believe that can start with 350 Panago.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for your time.
Jen,
This is me.
technically speaking, your application.
Hi, Kirby. Thank you
Hello,
for.
Jennifer. Jennifer and I talked about this, 2 years ago?
We did, actually, when I was the director of the Montauk Chamber of Commerce, Kirby did come to me with this idea, no property yet. I have to say, this is really well fleshed out. I personally love the idea of workforce housing because I think one of the things that has kind of been a stumbling block to affordable housing is the concept of seasonal staff housing. And I know that a lot of the town codes prohibit seasonal rentals of affordable housing. So I think this kind of addresses that in a way that is, thoughtful and doable. If employers can purchase the houses and rent them out to their employees as needed, I think that solves a lot of problems. I also think the site is perfect for something like this. It's really ripe for it. The thought of putting 3 bigger homes there versus putting, affordable housing that people who live and work here, it cuts down on traffic in the trade parade. If the school district will buy it, then we have, teachers who can become coaches who live in the community. My first instinct is to say that I think this is a great idea. I think there are details to be worked out, but, my opinion is that I think it's really, kind of a groundbreaking idea to start to solve the affordable housing problem for staff.
Jen.
I think we can throw it open for conversation.
I'll start.
Let's go. Come around. Go around.
I want to thank you for taking a flyer and putting together investors to buy this thing. I think this is a brilliant concept. Private investment in affordable housing is really a tremendous idea. And it's what we need to kind of get past, as Chris described, some of the log jams we have with the town's programs, which are great, but don't really address, by definition, the full need that we have.
One benefit, of course, of privately done is that we can focus these units specifically on local employers.
Yeah.
We will have no municipalities giving us money, so therefore we will not necessarily have to reach out to a much broader geographic spectrum of people.
Yep.
And also, to be very honest with you, Jennifer could tell you this as much as I can. We know businesses that are in trouble. I know Southampton Hospital is in trouble. I know that the local teachers would love to have some outlet for housing for their teachers. I asked the support staff of the town police, not the police themselves, but the support staff, if they could buy these units themselves in some way. I got a request for 29 units out of them. I stopped asking anybody almost 2 years ago if they'd like to get on a list because I thought it was self-defeating, and why raise the prospect of something that was still so much in a very elementary phase. So yeah, nobody has really plumbed the depths of the need per se, and also the effect that will have in terms of sustaining businesses, eliminating traffic, taking some of that angst out of the community that right now is just becoming deeper and deeper.
What I'd like
think
to
this-
do,
I think-
what I'd like to do is, if you don't mind, you could have your seat. I'd like the conversation to be among the board.
Oh, sure.
All right?
Of course.
I appreciate
And-
what you're
Let me just
trying to-
conclude.
No, go ahead.
And I just wanted to say one thing to Kirby's point, and then I'll be quiet. Working for 2 years in Montauk and fielding calls from people who have jobs in Montauk, for the summer, for the extended season, desperate for housing, and there's no place to send them. And then those people do not take the jobs because they have no place to live. Then those businesses are not open, full time. They're not, it's just kind of a circular problem. And I think this is really an amazing result.
I think we all know businesses out here who are struggling.
Yeah.
I think we all have familiarity with people who run businesses who can't find people to work.
Yeah.
So I think the need is well established. There's really no question about that. The traffic issues, all the things that you mentioned, right, it's very clear. And I've always felt that, private investment in this issue would really be a major part of the answer. And here we are. I think that there are a tremendous number of hoops to jump through to get there, and to make sure that the intent of this program is maintained in perpetuity. Which is always a little bit tricky to craft all of that. But I think this is off to a great start, and I totally support the idea.
At the risk of sounding contrarian, because it seems like everybody's so for this plan. And I agree, there is a great demand. I'm not disagreeing with that. But before I get to my opinion about, this particular project, just in terms of process, I'm not sure why you're coming in front of the planning board with this. I realize that there was a previous application, you now the new owner, but, I'm not used to just discussing an idea. Usually there's a preliminary site plan review, we have plans, we have all kind, the elements of the site plan review. And, this is more something that I would envision going in front of the town board with this kind of idea. So I'm just curious about that. That's the first thing. But as far as the idea of it, since you brought it up in front of us and you're asking for our opinion, yes, this plan versus what was in front of us before, no doubt, way better, meets a greater need. I'd rather have this any day over three huge homes right there on Montauk Highway, on Pantego Road. However, when we were talking with the meeting that you said inspired you to go after this property, and we were talking about hoping that this would not be developed into 3 large estates, but rather that since it is an affordable housing district, that it would be sold to someone who would develop it as affordable housing. But not work, there's a difference between workforce housing and affordable housing. And for me, if you were to grade those 3 choices, the 3 homes, affordable housing and workforce housing, I certainly would choose affordable housing. And the reason I say that is because, again, I'm not disagreeing with the idea that there's a tremendous need and we should find a way to meet that need, because businesses are suffering here. They need a workforce, and one of the greatest problems is to house that workforce. So I'm all for that, and I'm all for helping those businesses. They're a vital part of our community, and I have nothing against them. And I'll do whatever is necessary on my part to help them out. However, again, in terms of prioritizing things, affordable housing for ordinary citizens that live here year-round is much more important. And I wish that this particular property was being developed for that kind of affordable housing and not workforce housing. I don't want to turn this community into an elitist community where you have a very wealthy stratum, and then all the businesses, have workforce housing that hire people to run those businesses, and ordinary citizens of modest means no longer live here. That is a greater need for me. And I'm kind of disappointed that it's going in this direction. I was hoping that this property would be developed as affordable housing. And just one last minor point, a question. When you say units with regard to changing the code from 8 units per acre to 12, how do you define a unit? Because you mentioned in your plan that you have 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms. Is each one of those considered one unit? To me, is a big difference between a 1 bedroom unit and a 3 bedroom unit. So if you build 12 3-bedroom units, that's much more intensity than 12 1-bedroom units. So has that been resolved? So that's my question. That's all I have to say.
To answer your question about why are we here, and the fact that it's no site plan, no plans, is because what the applicant is basically doing is saying, am I going to go forward with pending subdivision application, or is there receptiveness to the idea that the applicant has for this workforce housing? And so that's why it's come before us. I'll let everybody else speak, but I should just let you know, you're not the only one who has that kind of misgivings. And mine are, I'll get to that, are very close to yours, but they amplify differently. So, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely sympathize with what you're saying. And the affordability of this town it's not affordable at all for anybody, except for those who come here from other places mostly. But I think we need both, right? So I'm okay with this idea just because I think that's also needed. And hopefully we'll keep working on the affordable housing part of it. But in the end of the day, both of these things are needed in this town to keep it all running and going. But yeah, you're basically saying is that the businesses are going to be good because now they get housing, and then the people are going to be left out. But hopefully those people are going to be working in these businesses. So I think it could go both ways.
All of them.
Not all of them. I agree. And and 48 units, like he's already sold 80. It sounds like from the numbers you showed up. He's got 30 here and 29 there, and so we know that it's going to be a frenzy to get these units, and that's what's happened with every one of these projects.
There will be quite a few. Under the proposal that we read, it's going to be many housing. And this pamphlet that we just got shows that.
I thought it was 48 units.
No, I'm saying it's considerably more than the 3.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. No, and then the 3 won't be affordable.
No, I'm not sure most people.
Right, yes.
So I need a little bit of an education between affordable housing and workforce housing because I thought they were interchangeable. But you're telling me that affordable housing is a permanent
They're
Income
a lot.
restricted.
Let me give you an example.
Income restricted.
It's a home also for someone. This is like they're going to be tied to the
This is the
employer.
Is that the
purchasing.
employers
but as the employees of the hospital are going to be there year round.
Yeah.
Even though the building is owned by, is the issue that they're not building equity or is it just they're renting or something? I'm not. quite sure of
The residents are renting from
They'd be
Right.
renting from
From
their
their
employer.
employer.
They'd be
Yeah.
renting
Part of-
from-
It would be part of their compensation package.
And also a doctor may make more than what the affordable,
Well, that's an exception built
Right.
in
yeah.
for the hospital, for doctors.
But I think your point is right, is interesting too, the difference, you know, if any employer with 4 or more employees, like, I could be a workforce person, you know what I mean? My employer has more than 4 employees, they could, you know, ostensibly
But it's
purchase
usually
one
a
of
place
those.
like Gurney's, and I don't want to mention names, but big places like that, they buy I know they've been doing this for a long
For
time. They
years,
buy a
yeah.
hotel, and then they house everybody in that hotel, and it's seasonal housing.
Or they
They
buy a
just-
house.
They buy
They're
a
just
house.
there to have the workforce that's needed for the seasonal business that they have.
But those employees do provide a benefit to the town as a
I
whole.
said, yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah.
There's no doubt, and I'm all for workforce housing, and please don't mistake my.
Not, yeah, and I
But I
appreciate the
just wanna-
distinction.
I want to delineate the difference between workforce housing
Yeah.
and affordable.
We need them both.
Yeah, I think we need them both.
I also believe that if you have an affordable accessory apartment, it could potentially be used for seasonal use.
That was under discussion. Is Jeremy still here?
Where's Eric Chance?
Trying to turn the AC off so I can actually hear you.
I know that it was,
So
I know
it's-
that it was
so-
under discussion.
I thought it was
Was it codified?
So
It may have been.
So my argument is like, it kind of exists that we have this workforce housing already, just not enough. And the plan that's being presented, I am 100% for. I agree with Sam that with Lou, that the kind of jumping some steps from where we're sitting, but I understand where you're coming from.
There's a lot, I mean, it's proposed legislation, and we don't do legislation here. We're very clear. And it's not, let me wrap up, and then I'll give you a chance to say.
Okay.
Bruce, Bill, is the mic is there?
Yes, I'm done. Thank you.
Bruce, go.
Yeah, no, I really support this idea. My wife works for Meeting House Lane, and we have this discussion all the time. And it's gone down to, let's see what's available, and maybe the hospital will purchase whatever. So I think this is a great idea. It's a great location. So, listen, I understand where you're coming from, Lou, but I think we have to think sort of outside the box, especially for something like the new ER. Without staffing, that place isn't going to make it. So I commend you for doing this. So yeah, I think it's a good idea.
I just have one more comment to make, and my wife is a farmer, and that is the most seasonal jobs, and they are always struggling to find proper housing for the farmers.
Yeah, that is very.
I mean, the problem is that we have so many different types of needs here. We have the farming and the restaurant community and the resort hotel community, and we have 24/7 needs, the doctors and the emergency folks who do, first responders. I'll tell you what it's more of a philosophical issue than anything else. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and if it's really not anything anybody's going to lose any sleep over, then I'm just mention it. This is going to be an asset for every business that does that owns the right to have this housing. While they may not be able to make money selling the individual units, because there's a long tradition of that. There's a program, if any of you have heard, called Mitchell-Lama, where you could own a unit and never make money on it, but you live there and it was your house, and that was fine. And that I get is the idea here is that the businesses are going to own the business, they're going to own this housing, but it does increase the value of the business. And if somewhere, and I'm not talking about things like police department or school district, probably not the hospital, but private entities, restaurants, clubs, things like that. One day, we always talk here about, well, what happens when it gets sold? Well, what happens when it gets sold in this case is that there's now a parcel of land attached to the business, whatever it might be, and that's going to enhance the value of that business. And that's something that I think we need to think about, because is that something that we should be doing in terms of changing the way we do things? Is that really the intention, or not the intention, but that is what will happen with this kind of workforce housing? So I'm a little worried about that. And I'm also a little worried about community. You know, this housing is all tied to employment. And when an employee leaves, well, they're going to lose their housing. Now we're building, we shouldn't by no means take credit, but the town or the housing authority is building housing all around town, on 3 Mile Harbor, on across the street on Cantwell Court. And the intention, and we've all talked about the tech, I mean, Cantwell Court's fresh in our memory. You know, we did planning issues to enhance the sense of community in that subdivision, or in that project. And I worry about housing that is tied to employment and whether that creates the same sense of community that we are striving to achieve in places like Cantwell Court. Now, I understand that in the broader sense, there will be community because, you know, the doctors will get to live here, or the teachers or whomever will get to live here, and that'll be good for the broader community. But in terms of the local community, the street on which the folks live, somebody loses their job, somebody isn't there anymore. Now, you know, it comes and goes.
But I think that's already happening, Sam. There's houses all over town being bought by employers.
Oh, that I know.
And the people
Absolutely.
come and go on
Yeah.
the streets. I mean, they come and go, you know,
Well,
it's already, and now they're buying houses where maybe somebody else could live, you know?
No, I'm not going to use any
Yeah.
names, but I think we all know of businesses that own houses that have more than, 4 people who are not related living
Yeah.
under the same roof? Is that the rule?
Yeah,
So,
but that's already, so they're already creating that
Yeah, no,
asset
no,
in their
I-
business. So that restaurant probably, if they sell the business, they're going to sell that house with it probably, or,
yeah, well,
you know.
My neighborhood is not very much a community. You know, most people, honestly, you know, I live in Northwest Woods. It's a great little neighborhood. But it's, you know, the street guy across the street from me, Airbnb's his house. Next door is, I don't know which business owns it, but, you know, so it already is doing that. And this might, I don't know. It's a good point, but I think it's
Yep.
happening already.
I want to comment on that too.
Yeah.
I think we are losing community to second homeowners all over town. You know, I think we're losing community, period, right? And I think this is actually an opportunity to create a certain amount of additional stability.
Yeah.
Even if it's not exactly the kind of community we envisioned for Cantwell Court, it's stabilizing things to a greater degree.
And people might be encouraged to stay at their positions longer if they
Yeah.
have
well, you know, I mean.
stable housing.
Yeah, and there's also the potential flip side of somebody who might not get along with their employer, having to worry about, well, you
They're
know,
gonna
if I
kick
get
me
into
out,
trouble with my employer, now I don't have a place to live. I mean, that, you know, I'm not,
But like I said, that already exists.
Yeah.
yeah,
because,
well, yeah, but when you're tied,
Sharon,
Yeah.
do you want to make decisions that exacerbates that? I mean, to say that it already exists
No,
is really an argument to not allow it to continue to.
no, my
Flourish.
point is, no, I don't think this will exacerbate it, I guess.
Well, will there be protections when they write this up?
well, this is
for
one of
these?
that is actually, I think, one of the things that we should be talking about.
Yeah.
Because if this is if this proposal is going to be moving forward to the town board, then maybe something that we should be talking about is that concern, that this was raised. And look, The last thing I want to do is, throw cold water on the idea of housing for folks. I mean, I recognize that, of course. It goes without saying. It's just a question of the long-term impacts that I do worry. I mean, I don't know how anybody feels about writing a letter, or if they think that this is enough of a discussion, or if we want to maybe give the applicant some sense that, we favor the idea, but we have certain issues that we think need to be worked out.
Well, I do think we need to see a site plan, right? We need to see what the traffic could possibly be in that neighborhood.
Might be a good idea. Well, listen,
Right now, this is just a concept,
Right.
Well, all right. If anybody else has any, no one else has any comments, I'd like to turn the floor back to the applicant. Does anyone else have anything they want to add?
No.
So, I do think Sharon is right on the money here.
If I could just address that, because, and to Lou's point about why are we here? What was the old, the vice presidential candidate for Ross Perot? Who am I? Why am I here?
Governor of Wisconsin. I can't remember his name.
Stansfield?
No. He's the governor of Wisconsin.
No, it was a.
Oh, no, that's right. That was you're right. That
Anyway.
It was Admiral, you're right.
Why we're here is this, to get a sense of whether this concept is worth investing all the investment that goes into plans for a site plan for something that is not technically permitted just now by the town code. We need to know whether the concept is something you're interested in, and then would you support the concept? Now, I think the chairman said we don't do legislation. Well, that's not exactly right, with all due respect, because any amendment to the town code, to the zoning code, has to come through you. And in fact, at the July meeting, you will be, my understanding is that you may be being asked to opine on the town's proposal to increase density to 12 units per acre for senior citizen housing. So you have that role, and you will get this back, hopefully, when it comes back, in a refined form with the actual statutory language. We've been talking in statutory language for over a year now. You will see all the requirements that this law will have and see if it meets your concerns about how it's regulated. So you have a second bite at the apple. This isn't just an initial conceptual discussion in the hopes that you would help get the ball rolling by telling the town board, yes, this is a concept that we'd like, subject to all sorts of, to review of the final legislation. And this is something that we could see going at this site. Now, the other thing, in terms of Lou's concern, and I understand your concern, but when you wrote to the town board didn't go buy this property. You know why they didn't buy it? It's too expensive. The housing authority in the town is not going to pay what Kirby's group paid to put affordable housing here. It would be great if they did, but that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
I should say that we don't author legislation. Well, what you said is absolutely true. We get it, we review it, we comment about it, but we don't author.
No,
legislation.
But you're asking us to opine on this, which I think you got a pretty good feeling for what everybody feels about it. But we also don't know all of the circumstances, all of the dealings that are going on that, are not available to us. The way it's been presented, it sounds as though the competition is between building 3 homes or this plan. Is that true? I mean, it could be.
For us right now, it is. Those are our choices.
No, I know for you, but are there other people that are?
We own the property. We paid for the property. I mean, we could, and knowing that our exit ramp is 3 lots.
Right, but
We don't get where we're going, where we want to go, where we think we should go.
Who else would that be?
I don't know. I'm just saying that,
Well, maybe the idea, I think what you want to do is move the ball forward with us.
Yeah.
And I think that what Sharon said is the way to do it, is come up with a site plan. And
Then we were pretty, what if this legislation is never enacted? A site plan, it gets you down real fast into the weeds, as opposed to looking at the concept. Now, in this very discussion, it was very enlightening because one of the members said, well, workforce housing isn't as interesting to me as affordable housing in the traditional sense. Well, that was good to know that you feel that, because that's something to take into account going forward, that you may not be amenable to a workforce housing project because you'd prefer to have straight affordable housing. Well, that's why we came here, to flesh things out, to flush things out.
Add me to that list. You're talking about what Lou was saying, and I have the same concern.
Right, but the question is, can
housing.
you, based on the concept and subject to all the qualifiers that you want, say to the town board, we saw this presentation, we think it's got a lot of possibilities for this site, and we urge your consideration of it.
Yeah.
That's the type of.
I just want to make a comment about what Chris said, which is that, a private investor buying this parcel of land is not going to build affordable housing. It's just not economically feasible, period, end of story. The town didn't buy it at our recommendation for that very reason. It's either going to be something that is feasible economically for a private investment group to do, and this is a great solution, I think, or it's going to be 3 more mega houses that we all have to look at.
I don't think we have the choice of affordable housing is what you're saying.
Yeah.
There is it's idealistically right, but the town is also dealing with that, right, through the housing authority, kind of in its own way, right? There are projects on the boards for that. So, we may all want this to be that, but it just doesn't appear to me to be economically feasible. So I think we have to indicate to the town board that conceptually we're there. We don't even have to really be all on board about affordable versus workforce or anything. I don't think at this stage. It's really just, we think this is a really interesting idea that's been hatched here, and we need to make it, and we encourage moving forward.
And there's a saying that you're all familiar with, is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Right.
And we look forward to seeing the legislation so that we can comment on that.
Yes.
When it comes back from the town board, when it's generated by the town board, and we can make the suggestions that we have, are in their most nascent stage among all of us.
Yeah.
And just to go back to one thing that you commented on, that this will keep the workers local. Not that these affordable projects, they come from all over the county to live here, which is great, and I don't have a problem with that, but this one will focus on people who are not, who are from right now in the community.
Yeah.
And who have jobs here. Yeah.
And it's good for the employer, of course, but these people are earning an income and they're going to all the stores in the area.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I
They're
meant by
going
in
to
the broader
movies,
sense. It enhances the community in the broader sense.
No one is disagreeing with that. And I was afraid that, my comments were going to be taken that way. No one is disagreeing with the fact that workforce housing is absolutely necessary in demand. Like Bruce said, for his wife's business, she's a doctor. We need nurses, people in the medical field. Absolutely. It's not just dishwashers and, people from Ireland who work in, as waitresses during the summer. It's all of these jobs. So we're not arguing that. And as far as, writing to the town board and saying, we love this project, we're all for it, I think
That's not what I'm saying.
I think he said conceptually, we agree, yeah.
I think Chris said it better, said it well, that we like this better than the previous plan, but it's disappointing that it's not affordable housing.
I said that.
I don't think that's right. Exactly. We have it on record.
If they're pursuing.
That's the way Lou said it.
Yeah, you did say that. No, you see.
Doubling down.
I think you're in a different meeting.
I know.
It wasn't your.
Throw the red flag.
It wasn't your opinion. You articulated my opinion that way. Very well said.
I think
We don't know who's beseeching the town board with regard to other plans for affordable housing or not. We were told that they couldn't do it. They didn't have the money. It wasn't economically feasible. But, we don't know that. We don't know what was going on. We don't know if there are other suitors or anything like that. So we can't say that definitively.
Well, but we know we
own
have,
it. For
we now we know
They
we
own
have
it.
an owner.
Yeah.
They own
We
it.
have an
It's
owner,
done.
so,
It's
and an
done.
owner who's come up with a plan.
Yeah.
I think that what we can safely do is say to the town board that with respect to the application, the previous application for subdivision, that this board prefers this proposal, although it needs to be tweaked, it may need to be tweaked, depending upon what comes out of the town board. But we certainly support this proposal far more than the previous application for the subdivision.
At a minimum.
At a minimum,
Yeah.
yeah, at a minimum. But what I'm looking to.
We all agree on that.
No, but if we all agree on that, then we can provide that to the applicant, and the applicant can take that to the town board, and that's the, that
And
gives.
I gotta
Is
feel the town board will be receptive
Yeah.
to all this, even without anything we have to say.
Well,
As you're probably well aware, there's a certain inertia in government. And so you got to get the parts moving, and sometimes it takes a little oil and it takes a little push. And that's why we're here, to help you guys, help us push the ball.
well, what I'm suggesting,
I'm sorry, but push the.
what I'm suggesting, is that enough 3-in-1 oil to?
Would we ever say something like Ed said about the concept of private investment in affordable housing
Well-
as a concept that we,
See, that's when we get into policy issues, and I think what we need
Or
to do.
encouraging private
Encouragement.
Well, we
investment.
have an application. That's
Yeah.
the point. We have a pending application,
Yeah.
and we
We like
have
it.
a suggestion by the applicant to do something else. And the question is that something else, something that we can get behind?
Yeah.
And as opposed to the pending application.
Yes.
Maybe the
Okay.
council could draft us something here, incorporating the concepts in a way that she.
Or the planning department could possibly. Go, please.
I have a question. I fear that this rather enlightening and engaging conversation will end amicably and everybody will go home, and then tomorrow my phone will ring and somebody will say, now please write the letter. And we won't know which
Somebody.
concepts you all would like reflected in the
usually
letter.
my
So
job.
if there is a letter to be assigned, it, I think probably obviously will land with us. Can you all please spend a few moments finding your consensus about points that you would like to see?
I think, folks, tell me if I'm off the meter here, but that we support that as compared to the current application for
350.
Well, no, the three subdivisions into 3 units, the planning board supports the concept of affordable, of workforce housing as I don't want to say as articulated. See, now you're getting me.
What about
Now you got me
the whole-
dragged.
Better than the
What about the
alternative.
legislation change?
The
Is
two
that,
controversial things, to
Is
be
there-
very frank, is density.
Yeah, that's what I was
which
gonna
we
ask you.
addressed
Yeah.
in the sewage
Yeah.
treatment plant,
Yeah.
and ownership by employers. Those are the two distinguishing factors here that are be worked into the AHOD.
so that's what I was gonna ask you, the density issue from 8 to 12, that's what the town board has to, and is that something that you want us to have an
What
opinion
defines a
on?
unit?
Well, that's, a unit is a unit, is a unit. It's like a home. You have some 1-bedroom homes, some 2-bedroom homes, some 3-bedroom homes. Remember, you're gonna have a packaged sewage treatment plant here, so you're not having a conventional septic system. This is gonna be tertiary treatment. So,
But that also spills over into parking, traffic, all that kind of thing. I mean,
yeah, you gotta be.
Well, it's gonna be based on bedrooms anyway, so.
And that's ultimately why we want a site
Well,
plan.
that's.
Ultimately.
But the sewage treatment plant's
Yeah.
is on
Yeah,
bedrooms.
It's on bedroom.
Whether this is a housing authority project or a privately built project, you're gonna have the same traffic and parking issues.
Ultimately,
When
it'll
it
be a
comes-
site plan
when
that
it
we'll
comes to
deal with,
us, we'll deal with
and
how
we'll
many
be able to
bedrooms.
deal with all that kind of.
And we're not dealing with that
Dictates how
right
many
now.
parking spaces are needed.
No, all we're dealing with right now is, do we like the
concept.
idea
Like the, yeah.
of a workforce housing plan? My only issue is endorsing this specific plan the way you have it. I don't have a problem with saying workforce, that we support the idea of workforce housing for this parcel. Now, again, if there are folks at the table who think that this is a great plan, and we should just say, yeah, go ahead, then we can do that.
I mean, I think
we could
should
say
just be-
pending site
Yeah,
plan
yeah,
approval,
yeah.
kind of, yeah.
I think to answer Jeremy's question, I think we already answered it. We were unanimous in our decision and our consensus that we like workforce housing on this property more than the 3 lots that we need to be developed.
Is that enough? Like I said,
Do we need
What
to,
I can get.
a little can of 3 in 1.
do we need to say, like, we also approve the idea of the increase in density to 3 units, or that's further down the road for
That's
us?
further down the road,
Okay.
because the town board is going to present legislation to us, and it may have this number, it may have a different number.
So it's already being discussed, is what you're saying.
So it will be part of our discussion when it comes back to us.
I think being general and talking about the concept is, gets the ball rolling.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's, okay, so.
Feels a little
Jeremy, you have
lukewarm
what
to
you
me,
need
but-
to
Yeah.
Take the pen?
But, okay,
Go ahead.
go ahead. No, just, it just feels a little lukewarm and non-committal, but if that's what we've got,
But
No,
it's,
I think,
you think it's okay?
yeah, I think it is. Because it's one or the other. If we don't like one, we're going for the other.
and we're not,
In the letter, you'd send a link to the video so they can see the discussion.
they know how to turn
Great
on
idea,
LTV.
yeah.
But
They're watching right now.
the other thing is previously, and this is actually a significant change. Previously, we said we want affordable housing for this.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about it in terms of workforce housing. So what you're getting now is a change from us, from affordable housing to workforce housing. And what your application is really all about is workforce housing.
Yeah.
So you are coming away from the table with
Well,
that.
that's true.
It's true.
So we've moved the ball.
Pushing that ball down the road.
The chair has spoken.
No, the chair, no, not on this one.
So to summarize, you've indicated a consensus that you're asking the director of planning to concretize.
There'll be a letter.
And a memo or letter to the town board.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And we're all understanding why it is now it came before us in the forum that it did as a subdivision application. They've got the information that they need. They've got the input from us. They can now go forward, knowing that they're not gonna do 3 mini mansions on the former
Hallelujah.
Gertz property. Yeah, they're not so mini. Gertz, whatever.
Oh my gosh. I remember shopping.
So let's do,
Stearns.
It was
Stearns.
Gertz in
Never went for
1978, whatever.
Well, yeah, it was Stearns.
It was Gertz.
It was
before.
Gertz. It was definitely Gertz.
Yeah, it was
Gertz was a department.
Stearns was the last one, right?
Stearns was the last
Stearns was the
one.
last one.
It was Stearns. It was Gertz.
All right, let me do the 2 boards of review. The first is the request of Joan Likey for a building permit on the premises of 50 Gravesend Avenue, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-19-22-4. The work is to reconstruct existing asphalt pavement on Gladstone Place, starting at Gravesend Avenue, as is necessary, as directed by the town engineer. There's 172 feet of 172 linear feet of pavement. And the bonding on that is $22,000. I've reviewed the board of review and I move for its adoption. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Passed 7-0. And the second one is the request of Gabriel Q. De Silva, 39 Bayview Avenue in Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-106-1-16. And there's quite a bit of work on this one. Prepare the shoulders of the roadway to the edge of pavement, 281 linear feet. Stabilize the soil base, perform asphalt base coursework. And the bond on this is $20,000. I've reviewed the board of review and I move for its adoption. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. And pass 7-0. Finally, I reviewed the minutes of the June 5th meeting and they move for their adoption. Is there a second?
Second.
And that's with the, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's with the correction of the word vegetation in place of fencing on the 3 Mile Harbor Affordable Housing Site Plan. But that's
Protective.
printed in already. What over here? Protective, yes, yeah, for protective vegetation, not fencing.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
Our next meeting is in Well, next week is July 4th, so then we're back, when are we back?
July
July 10th? Okay. All right, sounds good. Anybody have anything else they want to cover, discuss, gripe about?
It's nice to be back.
It's wonderful. It's Admiral Stockdale, but I'm thinking of John Anderson's vice presidential candidate.
Now, John Anderson ran in 1980 for president.
Yes, and he had a vice presidential candidate who was the governor of Wisconsin. That's where it was, but you're right, it was Admiral Stockdale.
Those aren't bad.
So Chris was right, his memory.
It's the chocolate, little chocolate ones.
Very much.
That's not bad. That's not bad. I like the carpet.
All right, is there somebody who wants to make a motion so that
I'll do
they
that,
can stop
adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.